18. Aliens perform extremely painful procedures at times on abductees, saying that it is necessary, but they give no explanation why it's necessary. For instance, abductees have had the eyes removed from the sockets, where material has been scraped away or something has been implanted before the eye is put back in. And certainly this is humanly possible. We do it all the time in surgery. It's not a trick, but it's one of the things they do without anesthetic in many cases. Sometimes the abductee is subjected to painful constrictions around the head, the chest, or the extremities. They report seeing other humans, apparently other abductees, undergoing skull, chest, and groin incisions of sorts that our doctors do not do. And abductees are frequently forced to endure painful anal probes, as well as genital penetrations, and this includes, in our research, cases on children as young as 5 years old. 19. In some recent cases, we've gotten reports in which abductees, and this is very new, we're still trying to see what other correlations may come up with this material. Abductees report being shown how these gray beings, the ones that so many people are very familiar with, that many people only encounter, the Zeta Reticulans, whatever you want to call them, are not aliens. They are manufactured beings, and they've said this to several cases, and you've probably read about this. They are manufactured beings serving as a labor force with limited capabilities, and that these grays are produced from completely human material, most especially from the fetuses, sperm, and the ova that are taken time and time and time and time again. They've taken enough material, if it was reproductive, they could have populated the solar system. They're still taking it. So it may be that this most familiar of the alien life forms is not alien at all. We're working on that right now. It's tentative, but it is turning up in many cases, not many, but in a few cases, and we're working with many more. We don't know what else may turn into this to go along with this. The final point, the aliens make frightening predictions of an imminent time of global chaos and destruction. Has anybody here heard this before? Okay. They say that a certain number of humans, and this number varies from case to case, sometimes 12,000, sometimes several million. It's up for grabs. They seem to not know how to keep their stories consistent. That a certain number of humans will be rescued from this planet in order to continue the human species, either on another world, on another level of dimension, are back on this world after the destruction or the cleansing, the purification, whatever spiritual term you want to put on it, has been accomplished. Now, some abductees who've been told this and who've gone through some of these other things we've been talking about don't believe this story. They feel there's a much more sinister person behind this so-called human rescue effort. And the problem is these sinister feelings, these questions that the abductees have are very consistent. Totally unrelated cases. I'll leave it to your imagination because I certainly can't tell you what the obverse of a human rescue might be. Now I could continue. There are other anomalous reports, but I think these will show you some of what we are finding. Something that is contrary in some ways to what a few researchers would have you believe, that the abduction experience is limited to a set pattern. We know from the cases it's not limited to a physical exam merely or to an alleged crossbreeding experimentation. Some of these things have nothing to do with either of those approaches. Abductees are not merely undergoing objective, scientific-minded experiments or encountering only spiritually enlightened beings whose actions have our best interests at heart. There is that reported and there is this reported. Now, looking at a large body of data, it's clear to me, at least, that something else is going on, something not quite as simple as the patterns we've read about up to now would have us believe. In my opinion, at least in these cases, we're dealing with something far more painful, in many cases more terrifying. It's going on in many encounter cases. And I think we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean? What's the implication? For our children, ourselves, our world, our future? Now finally, this has just been a report. Now I would like to share with you some personal thoughts. And I don't offer them as facts, and I don't insist anybody accept them, but I hope you'll at least listen to them and try to think about them with an open mind. Put it in the big pot with everything else about the abduction phenomenon that you are learning about. These are personal gripes or personal points in a way. There's a theory current in ufology right now that says abductees who perceive their experiences as negative only do so because they themselves aren't spiritually or psychically advanced. Persons with higher cosmic development have positive alien encounters. That's what the theory says. And those who recall painful, frightening, or sinister events are merely spiritual Neanderthals. Now, the reason the researchers tell us that this is true is because the aliens serve as mirrors of our own individual natures. Now, Strieber, thank you, Mr. Conway again, has voiced this theory very clearly in the book Majestic, where he says, quote, "In the eyes of the others, we who met them saw ourselves, and there were demons there. They're just showing us our own demonic nature, our own lack of spirituality." Now, having known so many intelligent, moral, positively oriented, religious people who go through these abduction experiences, I believe the theory is wrong. And in my view, it's worse than merely wrong. It's despicable. It's as twisted as blaming a rape victim for the violence committed against her. This attitude, this very supercilious attitude on the part of some theorizers about the abduction phenomenon, leaves many abductees feeling doubly victimized. First by the ETs, and then by that part of the UFO community that condemns them for having been hurt or having been frightened by what those spiritually evolved among us claim to be wonderful space brothers, here to save us from ourselves. I believe there are a couple of reasons why this theory may be so appealing, as much as I dislike it. I understand, I think, the motivation behind it. Now, first off, I think that most humans have a deep need to believe in the good because of our own essentially moral nature. We have always professed to prefer good to evil. And even those among us who fall a little short of perfection, we still admire and we still are drawn to those who manifest goodness. Most religions teach that God, the good force, is mightier than evil, whatever form that evil may take. So we tend to think, by analogy, that if a being is farther along in some evolutionary stage than we are, it must be more spiritually enlightened. Second, I think we need desperately for these aliens to be benevolent because we feel so helpless against them. They seem to control events totally during abductions. And I think it's really too terrifying to think that they might deliberately hurt us or be evilly intentioned toward us because we can do nothing to stop them. We know our own weaknesses fairly well, and we need, I think, some superior force to offer us a hope of salvation, personally and globally,